I am back with another stop motion build, and this time we are assembling the sweet ride for the Heroes of Eternia that rolls, it shoots, it flies. Wait, it might have an identity crisis. Welcome back to the channel, and today we are looking at and building the Masters of the Universe Mega Construx Battle Ram that comes with two new figures in the line, Tri-Klops and Mekaneck. So hop on your sky sled and enjoy the ride. Spoiler alert, here is the completed build so you can see where we are heading today. It was fun and I always have a blast putting these sets together. Let's start by taking a look at the box art, and they did a fantastic job paying homage to the packaging look and feel from the 80s. If you remember the 80s box, it showed He-Man driving the battle ram and it had a washed out look to it and not a whole lot going on in the background. On the side of the box, there's a really nice shot of Mekaneck in his extended form, and I love that he looks like he is scoping out something in the distance. Now, turning our attention to the back of the box, you will find a big difference in the box between the 80s and this Mega Construx version, as this box shows another scene, whereas the 80s Battle Ram had just product shots on the back, and it's cool to see the art here. Looking at the other side, we have a shot of Tri-Klops with his angry eye. Maybe he's staring down Mekaneck, who knows? This is by far one of my favorite box arts from the Mega Construx line. Cracking this open, here is everything that comes in the box. There are 6 packages that consist of 4 bags for the vehicle, and 1 for Mekaneck and 1 for Tri-Klops. I was so bummed to discover that they had put Mekaneck and Tri-Klops together, as this would have been a great idea to have you put them together yourself. Isn't that the point of the line? But let's get on with the build. Let's first start off by building the sky sled and putting all of the small pieces together, and this was not difficult if you follow the step-by-step instructions just for this portion of the build, and you can start to see it take shape as you are building the base of the sky sled, and then at the end you are building the controls and handlebars, and the last step is to put the module on the sky sled. Through the magic of stop motion, we have the completed sky sled with a griffin head, and the box always makes these things look bigger than they actually are. The art on the side of the sled is printed on, which gives a nod to the original. The one piece that I wish they would have printed on is the control panel, as it looks pretty plain from this view. Getting a closer look, some of the pieces don't really sit completely flush, especially around this area, but all in all it looks really good. Onto the rear of the battle ram build, and this build takes longer as there are more pieces to deal with and more steps, but I find it oddly soothing to put this together. You'll notice some light green pieces at the bottom, and those are temporary pieces that you will be removing before the build is complete. One of my favorite parts of this build are the side exhaust ports, and I love how they found a way to incorporate this in the Mega Construx version. Some other cool pieces that give the rear of the battle ram some visual texture are the rounded square pieces that you see in the front that almost looks like pillows, so the drivers can have a nice cushy comfy ride. Towards the end you can start to see this take shape, and as we were adding the art and the wheels, and 317 frames later we finally join these two pieces together for a completed battle ram. So let's pick this little guy up, and you can get a sense of the scale here, and I wanted to show you how the sky sled and the rear missile launcher join together. The sky sled has a male piece on the end that mates inside a female port here, and when we were constructing the rear portion, there were some parts that we put together on the inside that allow the two pieces to mate together securely, so you don't have to worry about it falling out, as they just snap right in with little or no force, which is really nice. Let's look at the entire battle ram together, and they did a great job with the scale of this vehicle, especially with the wheels. They are not too big and not too small. The overall proportions and scale of both pieces feel right, and here is a look at those exhaust ports I was referring to earlier, which gives the vehicle more dimension. And if we look at this from the back, they have a platform that can swivel where you can put Mekaneck or other heroes there on the back. I love that they made a way for the missiles to store on the back, as I would ultimately end up losing them anyway, which I have a funny story to share about that later. The circular exhaust ports fans have printed on detailing and art that gives the battle ram a different look and feel from the 80s version. And one cool feature that was engineered in the battle ram was the firing missile, and these things shoot far. And in case you missed it, here is a slow-mo of the firing mechanism, and no joke, the missile can sail at least 7 feet. And funny story, I spent about 10 minutes trying to locate this missile from my family room, and I had to put this review on pause until I found it. Let's take a look at the figures, and we will start off with Tri-Klops, and I love what they did with the armor detail here, especially around the breastplates, giving the armor some definition, which is great because the original 80s figure armor was not that detailed. Now, turning this figure around to the back, I love that they have a place for Tri-Klops to hang his sword on his back, which is a nod to the 80s figure. They also engineered his head sculpt to rotate around so you can change his eye expression from nice to I'm getting a little peeved to the raging red eye, which is my favorite way to display this figure. Let's take that sword out of his back, and you'll notice that the armor is not a hard plastic. It's flexible and squishy instead of a tough plastic piece, which is nice because it also gives and bends. And here is how Tri-Klops looks with his sword in his hand. Pretty fly for a small fry. Let's move on to Mekaneck, and you'll see his vintage-inspired mace weapon where they had replicated the detail from the vintage weapon. The colors look amazing on this figure as they nailed the blues and the reds, and you'll see small nods to the 80s figure with his forearm armor on his left, and you'll also see the standard spike cuffs that you'll see on other figures in the line. They added some cross-hatching definition to the back of his armor, which gives it a more 3D feel to it. I'm so pleased with how this figure turned out. And Mekaneck wouldn't be the same without his neck extensions, and he comes with two, so let's pop his head off and show you how these go on. Here is what the first neck extension looks like, and these little pieces are hard for me to plug in, but once you get them on, you just pop his head on, and again, the difficult part now is these pieces are on a ball joint, so they will move when you try to put them on, and here is what he looks like, and I have to say that he does not look quite like I expected him to, and I think it's because his head and his neck are on these ball joints, as these pieces don't have a uniform look and feel to them. I do, however, like the detailing that they put on the neck, as it has that mechanical look and feel to it. To get the other neck extension piece, you just pop his head off again and struggle to mate these two parts together. So part of the issue here is you have all of these ball joints mating on top of ball joints, so they have more movement, and then you pop his head back on, and now you have Mekaneck in his full extension mode, and you might have to line things up to make these parts look right. And you can see what I mean about the parts being on ball joints because they don't form one solid piece. They continued the mechanical detail, which brings the continuity to the overall look. And for fun, here is a stop motion build of his neck. And here are both figures together, and they look great. Mekaneck is a little taller than Tri-Klops just because the top of Mekaneck's helmet comes to a point, and it looks like they could have some raging battles together. The million-dollar question is, how do these figures look on the battle ram itself? Inquiring minds want to know. Well, this is an interesting story, and I wanted to show you all the things that can happen when you try to do this. For example, you have to grab a hold of the sky sled, and this presents a couple of issues. The parts will ultimately come off, and now you're spending time putting them back on instead of putting the figure on. The front plate piece is the worst offender as this comes off really easily and often. Also, the parts are really small, and if you don't have great manual dexterity like me, you will have a calamity on your hands. But I realized that I needed to angle his legs to facilitate this process, but that introduces other issues where you have to try again, and other parts might come off like his cuff, and you're trying to mate his hands with the handlebar controls, and also the module might pop off as well. This was the most annoying part of the build, but I'll speed up time here so you can see some of the parts of the sky sled coming off, and it's hard to figure out how to get Tri-Klops to easily position himself on the sky sled, but a method that I found that works was to take the control module all the way off as one unit and put his hands on the handlebars and then just mate the parts back together. Mekaneck looks pretty cool chilling on the rear of the battle ram as he has a platform that plugs into the bottom of his feet, and since the piece swivels, it makes it really hard to put the figure on, but it wasn't as annoying as Tri-Klops. He has some handles for his hands, and he can hold on, and you can see that he has quick access to the missiles that are in the back there. Oh, the struggles of putting this battle ram together are real, my friends, when you're dealing with really tiny pieces that come apart easily, but I love the overall look of this set, and Tri-Klops and Mekaneck look amazing together, and I can't wait to put this set upstairs in my display, and we hope you enjoyed watching this build and review, and if you have your own struggles with the set, please share your stories in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to receive the latest hot take reviews, and thanks for watching.